So, from what I gather from data flowing through my brain via telepathy over 5 years and 5 months, I'm Alexander Suriajani. Mole in the right hand penguin duck birthmark is. I'm owed shit tons of money, and people have been stealing from me since 2011, maybe even before that, 2009. But there's something that they were talking about where something was going on 2011 to 2014 when I lived in Grenada and med school. And that was just the start of my first 2 years of med school in Grenada. And crimes were committed on me, and someone developed some compensation system, and people were supposed to leave me money for crimes committed and property stolen. People lent me Bitcoin and whatever the fuck else happened. And then some kids got jealous and stole this money. And then they got caught, and then they started gambling with it when I moved to New York in 2014 to 2017 in Brooklyn. And kids were stole this money and were gambling with it. And then they all started blackmailing each other for this money and kept gambling with it. Then they all got caught in like 2016 or something. They all got caught. And then I moved back to Houston because they manipulated some graduation bet. And I got kicked out of school. And there was some large sum of money I was supposed to get. And I was supposed to get everything. And then these kids acted like I found some game that I never found. And then they acted like I found it so they could, quote, keep this thing going, as they put it. Implanted me. And then I've been hearing little tidbits of the story ever since. Then I was the one who figured out telepathy was real, implantation was real, etc. In 2018, they were saying I was owed $100 billion in 2018. And I was supposed to get some money. Then these kids committed a political abuse of psychiatry, May of 2018. And they supposedly stole this money and then divided it into 5 Illuminatis, as they call it, whatever the hell that is. And then they kept gambling with this money. In the meantime, from 2018 to the present, I've been making ideas and they've been stealing them and gambling with them, et cetera, et cetera. So now I just overheard something about some kids making a deal about trying to recoup the money that was stolen from them. But what I'm figuring out is these kids were all gambling with money that was never theirs and money they stole in the first place that was stolen from me. And no telling what they were also stealing 2011 to 2014 that they were trying to compensate me for besides crimes committed. So what I've been finding out is these kids have been gambling with money that's really mine and then even putting people in debt for money that was never theirs. And even some of them were gambling with funny money and putting people in debt for bets they would lose or damages incurred for money that didn't even exist. So I'd look into that and get to the bottom of that because this is still going on. And I never had any deals with anyone. I purchased my Ethereum in 2017 from Corona. I just never knew anything. And I just been being fed little bits and pieces of information since late 2017 to the present. More so in 2017 to 2019, people were just trying to stop me from reading and learning all day and trying to distract me from typing my med school notes and just bothering me all day. And then around late 2018, 2019, I started getting weird little information and putting weird stuff together that was going on 27 to 2018 because I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was just hearing voices. Like I said, at first I thought it was my neighbors that I kept overhearing. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. Then I started thinking it was the frequency interference and a backwards tap. And then I thought it was microwave auditory effect because I read that Wired article and the sonic projection jazz. And then I also started noticing it was two-way communication, like I was saying. And that's when then I also found the globalresearch.org article about the neural implants. And then I theorized some mechanism of how it may have worked. And then someone was like, you mean like implantation? They said via telepathy. And I was like, So that's when I just started calling it. And then I also realized it wasn't microwave auditory effect because it was two-way. Like I could talk through the mind and I could also receive. So it was two-way. Microwave auditory effect just worked via vibrations and conductive hearing. You have sensorial hearing and conductive hearing. They're two different forms of hearing, but it worked through vibrations. And if I remember correctly, some thermoelastic wave, as they put it in the article that I was reading, but it works via vibrations and it would just be one way, just someone beaming words into your brain. You wouldn't be able to communicate back. Key point. So that's why I theorized it was a neural implant. But yeah, I get to the bottom of all of these things because what I'm finding out is some of these kids trying to put people in debt or demanding money from the government or whatever, or gambling with money they stole that was really mine is another piece of this. Not to mention a lot of these kids have been stealing money for crimes I'm a victim of and gambling with it, stealing money for ideas and IP I make that they were stealing and selling illegally and gambling with it illegally, stealing money for experiments I'm a victim of and gambling with it illegally. Even if they enrolled themselves, they were using my satellite coordinate and my home address. Their hustle may even be use their name, their address, but my coordinate. That could be another piece of this. And they've been doing a lot of tampering and covering up. So that was another one of their hustles, is they enroll themselves into an experiment, maybe use their address or my address, but my coordinate. And that's a piece of their hustle. And part of the reason they were doing that as well is to get all these devices in my brain and body, because they also knew I was some betting mule against my will. And then they were going to use this tech. They use this tech to manipulate bets, such as neuromodulation, et cetera, et cetera. And they used it to stop me from living a normal life, stop me from reading and learning, which is one of their main objectives. Trying to make me fat is another one of their key objectives. They get real pissed off when I work out. They get real pissed off when I read. They get real pissed off when I read articles. They get pissed off when they get pissed off about anything and everything I do. It's really weird. So there's a piece of this, like I was saying, in 2018, they kept talking about there was some Illuminati movie, some gambling movie, and then some real movie. And I was saying in 2018, their movie, whatever this Illuminati movie became, a story about the lies they tell their wives and the bets they sought to manipulate. Because there was these gamblers who kept trying to control information in some Illuminati movie, and they kept trying to make their bets look real and their slander look real to sell their lies in some Illuminati realm. And that's a piece of this. And then there's the gambling movie, which is something else. And they keep pulling switches and roll switches and hustles and trying to make people forget the real truth. But that's a key point. And I was working on my med school notes all the way from late 2014 into 2019. Didn't really stop. And they really kept trying to get me to stop doing that too. And they're all bent out of shape about it. So that's another piece of this. But yeah, I'd look into that. Praise Jesus. I'm Alexander Suriajani. Eyebrow ring. Real guy. Real ex-medical student who went to St. George University. Mole on the right hand, penguin duck birthmark. So these are key points. But yeah, some of these kids claiming they were robbed really were robbers and gambling with money that was never theirs in the first place. So that's a key point.